YouTube banned and then unbanned the channel Right Wing Watch in one embarrassing display of incompetence that's become all too normal for political channels on YouTube. So I'm going to get into the details of this story as well as share my own experiences and some of the experiences of others that are similar to this. So before I get into all of that, let me first share a little more details on what Right Wing Watch is. So this is from the Daily Beast. Right Wing Watch is run by the nonprofit organization People for the American Way, which was initially founded in 1981 as a liberal counterpart to the conservative Christian group Moral Majority. Launched in 2007, Right Wing Watch has posted thousands of clips of prominent right-wing figures making controversial comments, perhaps most famously including televangelist Pat Robertson and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. In fact, Right Wing Watch's exposure of Jones's false and conspiratorial rhetoric was key to YouTube and other social media platforms eventually removing his channel InfoWars from their sites. Now, before I get into anything else, let me just address a stupid point that I'm seeing repeated. The idea that, well, Right Wing Watch was, who cares if they're banned because they encourage the banning of Alex Jones. So, once you celebrate or encourage the banning of someone like Alex Jones, then you can't expect to be protected when they come around and then ban you. Alex Jones clearly broke YouTube's terms of service. He broke it to the point where Alex Jones got sued by families that he was attacking on YouTube. So these are clearly not the same. You have here an Alex Jones, someone who clearly broke the terms of service. Right Wing Watch did not break the terms of service, and nobody was calling to ban Right Wing Watch. It was just completely out of nowhere, and YouTube then bowed to pressure once they were notified about how wrong they were. So these are not the same. Now, ultimately the issue, and I can get more into it later, but the issue here is you have a prominent, first of all, monopoly power. YouTube has way too much power. There is no real competitor in this space. Google, of course, is massive. It's essentially impossible for anyone to properly compete with YouTube because of the power of Google. This is why these tech companies need to be broken up. YouTube should be separate from Google. It should operate on its own, which would allow more competition in this space. But right now you have a lack of antitrust here that is allowing companies like Google to continue acquiring more and more smaller companies and become these giant conglomerates where they just own all various industries, and no one can possibly compete with them because of the size of them and the amount of capital they have. Now, a little more, of course, on what happened next. So, Right Wing Watch tweeted out, this is before they were unbanned. Our efforts to expose the bigoted view and dangerous conspiracy theories spread by right-wing activists has now resulted in YouTube banning our channel and removing thousands of our videos. We attempted to appeal this decision, and YouTube rejected it. So just to give you an indication here on how YouTube treats or reacts to these sorts of appeals, they responded here saying, "Hello, thank you for your account suspension appeal. We have decided to keep your account suspended based on our community guidelines in terms of service." Notice how there's no details. They don't reference anything in particular, just a very general statement. We're keeping your account suspended because of our community guidelines. But here's the thing. If they actually broke the terms of service, the channel would not be back up. Right Wing Watch never actually broke YouTube's terms of service. But YouTube is so incompetent, they rely so heavily on an algorithm that there is a lack of human judgment here when it comes to actually assessing which channels and which videos are taken down. Now, before I even get to the unbanning, this from Daily Beast, notably many of the right-wing outlets and personalities that Right Wing Watch chronicles are not currently suspended or banned from posting content to YouTube, while Right Wing Watch has been booted for merely exposing their comments and content. Something Mantila noted as being particularly ironic. So Mantila is a senior fellow at Right Wing Watch. He says here, quote, "The number of times our video has gotten flagged and removed and the video from which we took it is still up on YouTube. You're just like, well, something is wrong with your system here," he declared. Exactly. This is an experience that many on the left have, where in order for us to call out and correct bullshit from the right, we have to, of course, use their clips, use their quotes. But YouTube treats the channels and videos that call out and expose that hateful rhetoric, they treat those channels the same as the actual channels espousing that hateful rhetoric. This has been going on for years. For YouTube to not properly hire humans to do this job, to have human judgment and be educated in this field to understand the difference between a critique of something and the actual bigoted and racist comments themselves, is completely ridiculous. Now, let's get to the unbanning. So, of course, this story blew up, and just so happens YouTube finally recognized their mistake. Quote, Right Wing Watch's YouTube channel was mistakenly suspended, but upon further review has now been reinstated, a YouTube spokesperson told the Daily Beast on Monday afternoon. The social media site also suggested that the issue was a mistake due to high volume of content and that they attempted to move quickly to undo the ban. Such a lie. They attempted to move quickly to undo the ban. Yeah, after it blew up online, exposing YouTube for being completely incompetent, they did not move quickly when they responded after apparently looking over the channel again. So Right Wing Watch is lucky here in the sense that they are a very well-known nonprofit, a very well-known company, that a very well-known channel, and it allowed them to, get these sorts of headlines, get these sorts of stories like in the Daily Beast that help to expose this. But there are a lot of smaller channels that don't get the same exposure. So some examples of that. Journalist teacher gets caught up in YouTube struggles with hate speech. So this is Ford Fisher. He is known for documenting, right-wing protests and basically sort of documentary style work where he's exposing, far right figures. Well, his channel got pulled down for exposing them. Again, even though he is not the one espousing these views, he's simply exposing them. He got pulled down, and this is a guy whose videos are used by other outlets like CNN, like NBC. So his videos can be used on massive networks, but his own channel where he is able to, make money for himself, help to sustain himself, his channel gets taken down for exposing that bullshit. So this is the kind of thing that happens all the time. And I'm not sure if I even, referenced or discussed what was discussed here. The fact that you have the right-wing channels that are exposing the BS staying up, meanwhile, the people that are exposing them being taken down. So Ford Fisher, an example of that. The Surfs, another example of that. This on January, I think, 16th. They tweeted out, "Hey YouTube, without any strikes or warnings, you just deleted our entire YouTube channel." And apparently it was for an old video about how Paul Joseph Watson is obsessed with eggs and targeted shoe on head. Harassment for a video calling out harassment. This is what they do. You call out the bullshit, you call out the harassment, you call out the bigots, you get taken down, but the initial video that is espousing that hate stays up. And I think this was reversed eventually, but the fact that YouTube keeps making these mistakes over and over and over again shows you there's a heavy reliance on an algorithm that is clearly flawed and not enough of a reliance on actual humans that can have, real judgment and education in this field to understand the differences. Last example here. Hey, it's Vadim. This is a very recent example. So another left channel here says 4 strikes for the same video. Since 2018, the last time I received the 3rd strike while the 2nd video was unlisted with a strike. After the 3rd strike, they reinstated it like they had after my 1st, and I received an apology. This 4th time, I received a message that my appeal had been rejected. I never appealed it. That was my first knowledge of the strike. I'm down. Sorry, and that's I'm talking to somebody else. But so here he got 4 strikes on the same video. This is pure incompetence. There is clearly an issue with YouTube's system, with how they handle political channels in particular, because of the way that content may be viewed, depending on your knowledge of the field of what's going on. You may think something is hateful. I'm not even I'm not even gonna give them that, because if you watch a video from the Surfs or from Hey It's Vadim, it is clear they are calling out the bullshit. So for anybody to have watched any of their videos and think that they are the ones espousing the crap, I have to assume it's just a heavy reliance on machine learning and that there really are no human reviewers watching this content, because if they actually were, I mean, it's obvious what these channels were exposing. So, and this is a constant thing. Of course, I have videos that get demonetized for calling out hateful rhetoric, or, for covering police brutality, of course, those are often demonetized. So whenever we try to do actual work, actual journalism, exposing some of the hate that's out there, we are the ones that are taken down or demonetized for exposing that shit. This has been going on for years. YouTube has to do something to correct this. But ultimately here, they're a monopoly. They own the space. There's very little competition because Google owns YouTube and owns countless other companies. They have so much power, so much capital. Nobody can realistically compete with YouTube unless you break these companies up, which is why YouTube should be separate from Google. If that was the case, there would be more of an opportunity for competition against YouTube. But you have a situation here where Google has so much power, you can't compete with them. So YouTube, at the end of the day, why do they care? They have an endless supply of creators. Why should they care at all about the political videos on their platform when they have so many other areas where they're making a ton of money from advertiser dollars, rules all. So whenever it comes to any of these political channels, they're going to err on the side of caution because they're so afraid of alienating their advertisers that they rather demonetize a channel doing great work and encourage that channel to do less good work, because who cares about them when we have all these other channels, all these other industries that are being covered, all these other creators that are popping up. Who cares about the political channels? Who cares about actually platforming great independent media when we don't really need them? So this is ultimately the issue. We have to break up these companies. And that gets to antitrust law and, of course, a whole other, discussion. But ultimately here, anybody that is claiming, oh, it's because you were happy that Alex Jones was banned or we're happy that someone else was banned, that is so ridiculous. YouTube doesn't care, what I or anyone else says about Alex Jones being banned. He broke the terms of service and got sued by families that he was attacking. That is a clear case. So YouTube simply operates on what they view as fair. And for them, it comes down to what do the advertisers care about? And ultimately it comes down to them not having to really care all that much about how people in the political space feel about them when they have an endless supply of cash coming in and no worry about any competition popping up.